All right, guys. Hope it's working. I'm not sure I can see if the mic. Hopefully the mic's working. If it is, give us a thumbs up just so I know. I just thought I'd do a little bit of a video. I haven't done one for ages on this channel. As you can see, I'm in the middle of redecking an apartment, ready for renting it out. I think somebody's already ready to move in, probably in February, March. So it's getting there. It's had a bit of a complete overhaul. I still want rid of some of this furniture if I can, because it's not owned by me. So, but I want to try and move away from the old pine, which is very 80s, and try and get some IKEA stuff in. Yeah, I mean, Brexit's obviously occurred, although I'm still a bit, has it occurred? Because the transition period is still ongoing. Seeing yesterday, they're talking about permits for HGVs needed for Kent. Wonder if that's a little bit of extra money in the purse for Kent, because that's one of the things I will say about anything the government does for you, they always take it away. Simon Last, hello and Happy New Year. Happy New Year, mate. I hope you had a good one. So yeah, I seen that with Kent yesterday. Now talking about these permits or whatever, so you can actually take your truck to the ferry. You think, well, that's not a lot, but I think it's 5,000 to 10,000 trucks a day. It's something ridiculous. So even at £10 a day, it's not a bad little earner for a council for something that wasn't there before. It's just a little cash generator. And then yesterday, I think it was over in good old Heathrow, British Airways restricted people heading back to Spain that have their residency as, because you have these little green cards. I haven't got mine on me, but basically it says you're a resident of Spain. Now there's two things here. Firstly, when I deal with immigration people, I try and not tell them anything. So if I've got my passport and my residency card will be in my pocket. I'm just going to show my passport unless they ask for the residency certificate. The reason for that is you're just going to confuse them. We had this when we went over to the UK, not this year, the year before, 2019, because I'm 2 days into the new year. Where at the airport, the air courier rang up Birmingham Airport's immigration officer and basically said, "Oh, we're coming over there. My wife's from the Philippines, EU resident. Da, da, da. No, can't come, not allowed." Da, da, da. Then rang up another official, not an issue. Got to the airport, not an issue, because you're allowed. There's nothing to prevent that actually occurring, but you will get these people that really do not know their own job. And there doesn't seem to be a process or anything to actually have them reprimanded for it, which is why they have this little tin god syndrome where they pick and choose who they let into a country, which isn't really up to them. And then they wonder why they get all this bureaucracy and messing around and why people get fed up with them. But yeah, so 9 people got refused a flight to Spain yesterday. One of them being a journalist, which is always good because the journalist is the first one to have a good moan. And they've actually turned around and said, yeah, your visas were valid. They'd actually got it wrong. But on the side of the air courier, I also understand why they're a bit frustrated, because the information out of the government is possibly, maybe, could be, this might happen after the 31st. Nothing conclusive. And then you hear these things, oh, we're not expecting delays at the ports. We're not expecting. The fact that you mention it is you are expecting these problems because you're looking into it, which tells you you're expecting there will be issues. And I do expect issues simply because it does seem a lot of people haven't been trained, because obviously the processes have only just sort of been finalized. It's a bit like COVID. I was watching I saw on Sky News actually this morning. Around, I think they released it probably 12 hours ago. They're talking to one of the hospitals about the vaccine. The first thing they say on there is they've revised the booster, because obviously you've got to get another injection after the first one. They revised it last week. And then they've got the cheek to turn around and say patients are confused. Patients aren't confused. They're getting mixed messages. They're getting told one thing, and then by Friday it's changed again. It's not that they're confused; they're being misled. Now, my personal view on the whole COVID situation, myself, I am not worried about COVID. And I know people of an older age, like 60s plus, they have concerns. I don't blame them. But at the same time, I can't really get my head around why the world stopped revolving for the mass population of the planet. Because I mean, I know the UK has got 500,000 people have had this vaccine already, which is obviously being thoroughly tested, and it's not going to have any issues around deformities of births and anything like that. Of course not. Because why would you run something through without actually doing all that testing that normally takes a bit longer than they've actually done? But at the same time, myself, not too fussed on that myself, but I also think I'm not too fussed on the vaccine at all, in the sense of I don't need it. Ask me when I'm 60. Right now, I'd rather rely on my immune system. That's what it's designed for. It's supposed to be adapting to the environment we live in. That's the reality. And I think that's the bit that is frustrating for people like myself, that it does seem they're trying to strip some of these. I mean, they are human rights at the end of the day. And I hate using the word human rights because it's often used and abused politically. But you are a human. This is you. This is you as a person being told you must do this. And they're going, no. We're not going to force it on people today. Because this is how it all works. I mean, this is like going back to Brexit again. Brexit, you will find extra taxes suddenly coming in. Duty-free has now been brought in. And there'll be lots of other bits and pieces sneaking in very quietly. And you will suddenly find that, hang on, I'm paying a lot more than I used to. I now need fully, medical insurance to travel into Europe. Didn't need that before. Oh, there's extra taxes now? What's these extra taxes for? All that stuff will be going on. Thomas, normal flu vaccines are only around 60% effective at best, and we need an 80 and 90% vaccination rate, and then make the COVID vaccine part of the regular biannual vaccine schedule. I agree, but then they're trying to sell us the next vaccine for this other variant that just come out of thin air. Yet I was actually listening to, I think it was somebody out of Oxford University that studies this stuff and says having variants is normal. And to be fair, the flu is a prime example. There is multiple variants. This is why some people have bad flus and some people don't. It's the same as you have a bad year on some flus, because the strain is stronger some years and not the other. So the point being is, like you say, it's only 60% effective, and I assume some of that is down to the strains as well. So the point being is, it's not as cut and dry as they're trying to make out. On top of that, I'm sitting there going, but I don't think I actually want it or need it. Well, sorry, definitely don't want it, but I don't think I even need it. Peter Hopkins, I wouldn't take it otherwise, but will to travel. That's the only one they could probably get me on. If they suddenly start saying, right, well, you have to do all the screening, 14 days quarantine both ends, unless you have the vaccine, then, but the other side of this, has anybody actually come up and says, well, if you've got the vaccine, you don't have to worry about that? I have not seen that anywhere yet. And that's one of the key things there, because they'll go, well, maybe you should quarantine just in case. So it then become a complete waste of time. So if they actually turn around and say, well, if you've had the vaccine, go ahead, I may do it, just simply for peace and quiet. Peace and quiet, not peace of mind, peace and quiet, because I don't think COVID's that severe for me. I'm not really bothered about it. I know other people go, well, other people have lost relatives, other people. Yes, but look at the stats. I mean, would they have died from something else? Were they already on their way out? A lot of the cases, the answer is a big tick in the box. The answer is yes. It just becomes much easier to go, rubber stamp, COVID's killed everybody. Everything else has stopped. Everything's great. Nobody has to worry anymore because there's only COVID. Nothing else exists. Thomas, the protection only lasts about 6 months and trails off towards 12 months. So I don't feel confident about things returning to normal anytime soon. No, they don't want it to return to normal, in my personal opinion. This is a cash cow. Look at the money that's been made from associates of MPs on PPE equipment. And that's not just the UK. That's been global. It's all almost like it's a political party globally just cashing in wherever they can, because they've had a massive opportunity to push things through on. I mean, in the Philippines, they call it an express lane, which is basically, if you ask what the fee is for the express lane, because everyone paid for it, so it's not actually any faster than anybody else. In my personal opinion, I think it's nothing more than a slush fund of some sort. But that's the way it is. But what frustrates, see, in the Philippines, I've got to accept it. It's not my country. In the UK, I don't have to accept it, because quite simply, by default, I come from the UK. You know, I was born there, so you've got to have some rights, even though they're trying to take most of them away from us. We've got to have some. I had to drink that quick. Coffee's going cold because I'm down in the apartment at the moment. The heating's only just kicked in, so it's been about -3 last night, so it's still a bit chilly in here. I'm in my shorts and t-shirt. I'll go paint the ceiling in 3 of the rooms today and finish off the walls, but I'm hoping to have this finished in about 3 or 4 hours, so I can finish this one off. Sky News, Simon Last, Sky News is just saturation media coverage of COVID, putting the fear of God into people. It's not just them. If you get, I mean, what gets me is even when you go on Facebook, I'm seeing updates from the NHS. That's taxpayers' money paying for that. I don't need the NHS telling me this, that, and the other on Facebook. I don't pay them to advertise things. In the same way, you're seeing in the gov.uk in Facebook a lot now. That shows how tight those relationships are with media groups now. It's like that. It's hand in glove. It is a bit concerning, the state of play. But one of the things I've got to say is try not to get too frustrated with it. We're stuck with it. Unless you're planning on starting a new government party and got enough members to change the government. Because this is one of the things I will say about democracy. It's a false truth. The UK is pretty much a two-party system. If you don't agree with that party system, you cannot get enough power to actually change the government. They go, oh, well, get elected. Right, you're one voice amongst hundreds. You'll never get enough power to change it. But you've got to understand that the ability to actually reform that, you would literally need a few hundred people being elected with similar thoughts to change the government. I mean, my view on most democratic societies that seem to revolve around this is that it does that left, right, and it just goes up the middle, because do it, undo it, do it, undo it, undo it, do it. It just goes backwards and forwards between the two, and just keeps going straight up the middle. It's not the best design. Now, I am a fan of proportional representation, in the sense of you should take people from different parts of society that represent different groups. You know, you could have people from the medical industry, people from steel industry, IT industry, social care, all these different, and make it proportional to where they sit in the population. Where it all gets a bit tricky is when you start to talk about unemployed, because obviously there is a lot of them. So that may actually throw the figures miles off. But as long as they're working for the overall picture, it could actually work. But I'm not designing it. I'm just saying that would actually have a better proportional representation, rather than we currently got, where it does seem that career politicians, when you look at their resume, you went to university, joined the political party, become an MP. Where's the job? Where's your real life experience, knowledge? It doesn't exist. It's a complete waste of time. This is why we end up with the people we got. Peter Hopkins, there's a whole branch of economics called health economics about the trade-offs for public health, cost v benefits, which has been thrown out of the window for COVID. It's a disgrace. I agree. They've completely blanked anybody that doesn't suit the agenda, in my personal opinion. I do. You may hear us say personal opinion a lot. The reason for that is it separates the two, because on YouTube, you've got to be careful what you say. Because if I say it as fact, without actually going, here's the documents for this, it can put me in a tricky position. But I can have a personal opinion, because I can say, I don't know, it's raining outside and it's sunny, in my personal opinion. Because it is sunny though, but the point being is that's my personal opinion. I can get away with that. So I do say that quite a lot, and then that's the reason why. Simon Last, Sky News is just such, we covered that one already. Yeah, so for me, I am very wary of the state of play at the moment in the media. I definitely have very, very little trust in the UK government. And even when I'm listening to some of the pro-Brexit guys, they seem to have become very blinkered, if not already, because I can understand they've got some viewpoints, but it's when the people say, oh, we're taking our borders back, we've done it. What have you actually done? What's changed? Because a lot of the problems that exist in the UK were already under UK control. It's a bit like Scotland. Scotland has a lot of parliamentary control. It has a lot of control over it, but it likes to blame London. And London likes to blame the EU. And for the next 5 years, all the problems that happen now during this transition period, guess who they're going to be blaming? It's Brussels again, isn't it? It's Brussels. It's all their fault. Nothing to do with the fact of our own incompetence. It's them that done it. There's a whole problem in society today around ownership. I see it all the time. Different scenarios. It's whether somebody hurts himself and they've got to have this big review. And how did he fall over? Not. He was always an idiot. He hasn't got any more stupid. He's always been stupid. He's always hurting himself. He needs bubble wrapping and just leave it in the cupboard. There's a whole thing about self-entitlement, not responsible for anything. And I'm not getting into BLM and all that sort of stuff, but it does seem some of that is very focused in that way. But don't get me wrong, because I'm not a racist. My wife's from the Philippines. I've got plenty of friends from all around the globe. In fact, I spend more time with people around the globe than I do with British people. But the reality is that what is the objective? If somebody says, oh, well, we want to complain about it, well, complain, but I don't need to hear it. If you think that you're so downtrodden, fine, do something about it. I just don't need to hear it. And the reality is, I don't think it's this generation that's had the problem. That's what I find peculiar, because even a slight bit of racism in my office environment would get you sacked, without a doubt. And I've had it in previous employment where, Edward was put into a housing association in London because he was black. And that's not my personal opinion. He was black. He describes himself as black. He's an ex-Zimbabwe guy. He's been in the UK since, I think it was 1984, 85. And the housing association director actually said to him, we're employing you because you're black. Because around here, one of the problems we have is anytime somebody doesn't get what they want, they go racist. So they employed him to deal with the community there that often used racism as an issue. 2 seconds, the door's bell ring. Yeah, so they use that card when it's suited. And this is where I can understand where some people have some frustrations. But when I'm going, okay, well, if there's a problem in my office space, instantly you can pull that card out and I'm suspended, I'm under investigation, but it only goes one way. You know, I can't say, well, they dislike me because I'm white. Oh, you're just being an idiot. That's still aside. But I don't see that as too much of an issue. It's just the fact is, I just find that a lot of the time it's like, oh, my feelings have been hurt. And to be fair, I'd probably say it's more white people that have created this issue than anybody else. The PC Brigade started bringing all this stuff in. And I've spent time in different communities over the years, and it's normally the social workers and other people that know how other people should live, but have never had a real job. They've gone from school to university and then become a social worker. So they haven't had any understanding of the people they're trying to dictate how they should live their lives. And this is where some of the problems are, because they don't understand them. You know, they've got this utopian environment in their head that is obviously their utopian, nobody else. And then they're trying to say, well, he may get offended. They may get. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you telling me that this person could get offended? The fact is, they're not offended at all. In fact, they never even thought about it until you started making it an issue, because you're sitting there going, I need to justify my living. So I do get the feeling some of this stuff is created from that type of environment. And this is where people go, oh, well, we're mistreated. And you're going, where? You know, in my generation, I have not seen anybody not given a job or anything else because of where they come from. The only time that may occur is when maybe restaurants have employed people illegally and they're receiving £10,000 fines per person for illegally employing people below the average, the minimum wage, as well as employing people without any paperwork. That may occur, but do you know what? Don't really want to talk about that. That stuff we can't talk about. The same is when a lot of the Indian restaurants employ Bangladeshi cooks. Don't really want to talk about that. But I know from people I know, because like I said, because I just say it as it is. I know from some people that I know that own restaurants, the reason they employ Bangladeshi chefs, they do. I'm not talking about as a greater business. It's because they're cheaper. And that is ultimately it, from my personal opinion and the people I know. So it's not so cut and dry. And this is why when people go, oh, well, we're oppressed. Sorry, oppressed by who? Who oppressed you? I certainly didn't. And I don't know anybody else that does. It's a bit peculiar because the PC Brigade have been in for at least a decade, which means the average person has probably got less. They tiptoe around things more than something they may have been more confrontational about previously. But now we've got an environment where people go, well, I mean, it's like, I think it's on Netflix at the moment. They were talking about, there's a documentary about rugby players and people from a black community in London not understanding that there was opportunities in rugby, blah, blah. I'll tell you now, there has always been opportunity for sports. I mean, I remember in Germany, I can't remember the guy's name. Now, he was a stereotype in the sense of he was I think it was probably about 6'6", black guy, very athletic. But you know what? When they had the army sports, he would win about 16 medals. He was doing the long jump, the hurdles, the long jumps, hurdles. What else did he do? He did the pole vault, 200 meters, 100 meters, up to the 800 meters. So the point being is, nobody turns around and say, well, he shouldn't be doing that because that's stereotypical. No, he's doing it because he's good at it. And the army think he's fantastic at it because for the regiment, he won everything. And he was good at it. He was on the basketball team. He was on the football team. He was on the rugby team. He was good. He was like lightning, you know. But the point being is, nobody says, oh, that's because he's... But at the end of the day, he was stereotypically very athletic as a black individual. He was a stereotype. And it's not because, oh, well, you're saying that because... No, it's because I'm saying as a stereotype, he was the stereotype. But it doesn't mean it was an issue. The guy was fantastic. He won everything. You just have to put him in there. I mean, if anything, he was still winning events, even though he'd he'd finished the long jump, and then literally goes over and he's starting on the 200 meters. And literally it's on one and on to the, hasn't had any recovery time and still winning it. So I don't see that as an issue. But what I do find as an issue is when you have to adapt a system for a change that already has some rules for whatever reason. You know, I think in London there was a issue around not enough Asian police officers, but one of the requirements was to do with height. Don't get me wrong, today that may not be an issue, but back in the 80s, I think a lot of Asians were quite short, in my personal opinion. So there was less people going into that as a career. But also remember, there's bits that people don't even talk about. You look at a lot of people. What's that guy on the UK TV? There's a guy that's I think he's a child psychologist. He does a lot of stuff on one of the daytime TV shows. His family are all doctors. His father, his mother, I think his sister, his grandparents, they're all doctors. And that's why they're not police officers. Because even when they turned around and said to him, his dad's, the guy's probably 50 now, but his dad still said to him, says, we'll happily pay for you to go back and study as a doctor. So the point being is, this doesn't even get talked about. They don't want to become a policeman. A lot of the time, they are not interested in that career. There is careers that they're more into. And that's just society, I'm afraid. I mean, it's a bit like the whole boys being engineers and girls being nurses. That's often careers people choose. And it's not society dictating that. It's a freedom of choice. Nobody's forcing, when I did my engineering, I think we had 2 women. And I don't know if they're still engineers now. Oh, one of them is actually. She does injection molding. But the point being is, nobody prevented them and nobody treated them any different than the guys. It was just literally turn up, do your course, and off you go. So that's what I'm saying. I don't understand where some of these issues are, because I can understand, don't get me wrong, if you're, people in London, there is issues there, but they don't really want to talk about the bigger issue. I mean, I'm not getting into the knife crime and all that sort of stuff, but the point being is there is some serious issues there they don't even want to discuss. Let's just blame the police for everything. It's much, much easier, in my opinion. But there's some serious issues there, and unless people can actually look into themselves and say, hey, what's wrong with me? How are they expecting to correct it? Let's blame somebody else. It gets back to the no ownership thing. Anyway, I'm going to try and get off this negative stuff. Simon last. Talked to it. Margaret Cadallo. Hello, everyone. Hey, how are you going? Clifford G. Hey, how are you going, guys? Let's move on to something a bit more positive, because obviously we can talk about these. I've been sort of frustrated with some of the stuff I see online, to be fair, because a lot of it is very biased in one view. It's like when you see stuff that's pro or against Brexit, there's very little in the middle, because they're both sort of doing that, attacking each other, when you're sort of saying, well, hang on a minute, what's wrong with the systems and how do we fix it? Don't really want to get into that. It's all the EU's fault. It's all the UK's fault. That's what a lot of it seems to be. My personal view is I've got no issues with the UK being in or out, as long as it's actually thought out. The problem I have personally is I think the UK lacks any serious leadership and has for some time. And that's the biggest problem in the UK. I do find that the recent PPE stuff does highlight the fact that there do seem to be a lot of self-serving individuals. But anyway, we ain't going to change that overnight. So let's move past that. And that's one of the things I will say is try not to get too bogged in with this stuff, because unless you're going to actually change it, it's often better to focus on something you can deal with. I bought a Quest 2 just before Christmas, and I've got to admit that's really good. Mallows 1963. Australia is looking for new trading partners. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what the UK government does. It just seems very disorganised at the best of times. It just, even this whole COVID thing, it didn't even stick to. It can't even manage to work a week ahead, because all you have to do is set scenarios, and you go, if this scenario happens, this is what happens. If this scenario happens, this is what happens. This one, and you just go, there's the 3 scenarios, and it just goes red. Color code it, red, blue, green, off you go. It's how you normally do damage limitations, but the UK just seems to be completely farcical. It just, for me, just seems to be a bad episode of Doctor Who, where you're expecting some aliens to come out of the out the Parliament, because it just seems so badly done. But I don't know where the UK is heading, really don't. But beyond that, I do think there is opportunities in chaos, and that's one of the key things here. I see the Bitcoins have hit well above $30,000 now. Myself, I've got all my cash in cash at the minute, so I've missed out on that one this time around. But the thing is, I don't know how far it's going to go. And one of the problems you get with investing, which is the bit I will say be careful of, is it's now hitting the news media, which leads to speculation. Speculation growth is risky because it's not actually based on something happening. So it's not actually saying this is based on, I don't know, increased exports or increased demand. It's purely speculative, which is when it gets to a point where you're going, how far is it going to go before it goes the other way? So me, I'm sitting on the sidelines because I need to buy a property here in Spain. My wife's seen a nice one yesterday, which is 130,000 euros. Got to admit, do like it. It's got 3 balconies, a penthouse, 3 beds, so everyone's got their own space. So I'm sort of thinking on that at the minute. I need to generate some cash out of private enterprise outside of work, because I need to generate some extra cash for that one. But it does look a nice property, and it's in the town we like. So that's what I'm focused on at the moment. Mallows 1963. What would happen if everyone withdrew all the money from Bitcoin at once? It will crash. What happens is, as you start taking the demand away, it does that. It doesn't just stay there. It's not like you could all just take it all out at once, because you need buyers of the coins. So the point being is, it's trading values. You've got somebody put in, say, dollars in, Bitcoin out, dollars, Bitcoin in, dollars out. So as somebody, say, took $5 million out, it will do that. What forces it up is if you've got enough buyers that start buying that because they think it's going to go higher. So it's not a case of you could just take it all out and it would just suddenly stay there and you've all made money, let it drop and then buy back in. You need people buying it in the first place. So it's not like just taking out your wallet and then putting it back in your wallet. The values will change. I mean, that's market trading. What would happen is you'd probably get a crash. And if you start the crash, it's probably going to do that, and then come back up. Because what will happen is people will dump because they're starting to see they're losing money, which then creates a run on it. People start withdrawing as much as possible, and then get even bigger panic because it's still going down. So even more people take it out, and then it levels out, and that's when you buy in and wait for it to go back up. That's what I'm saying. I've missed it this round, but I am expected to drop off again, and at that point I'll buy back in. But like I said, the main thing at the moment is property. So I mean, the annoying thing is I've got enough cash to buy a house now, but the one I've seen we do like, but I'm going to have to do some business deals to pay for it. So I'm going to have to treble the amount of cash I've got in the bank. But we're not in a rush. That's the thing. 2020 put a pause on everything. I was hoping to actually be pushing things home and being proactive in doing something. But because of the way COVID went, it sort of stopped everything. The clock stopped. And but we've got about 5 business opportunities in the fire at the minute, so just need one of them to drop, and that shouldn't be a problem with the cash then. Should boost the cash, no problem. But would I invest in Bitcoin now? Not myself personally. I'm a bit wary of it because I do think it's reaching a peak. It may drop off, then shoot up again. Yeah, as Pete Hopkins, Bitcoin for me is too risky. Look at the SEC action against XRP. I'm positioning metals, gold, and oil and gas, and the US has given up on any sense of fiscal discipline. Yeah, it is a risk market. There is a couple of guys I know that do Forex. I can put you in touch with them. They can show you that they're making about 5% per month. Now, one of the things I will say is a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not selling the services, and I'm not guaranteeing you'll make money. You're at risk of losing money, but I can put you in touch with people that actually have their own system and have been doing quite well on it. Bitcoin, I can trade it, but right now it's got to that point. It's a bit too unstable for me. When it drops off, that's when I'll do a buy-in and have a look at it then. But then again, at the moment, the best thing I need to put it in is to property to buy that up. Yeah, Mallows 963. Property is hard to sell in Australia at the moment, minus 20%. Here, the property's been stagnant. And there's 2 reasons for that. Firstly, the Brexit has held off new pensioners arriving to buy it up because we all live on the coast. Second one is a lot of the properties here are locked in with either the owners or the banks where they're in negative equity. Now, there's 2 types of negative equity. Real negative equity, which is where the property is worth 60,000 and the bank's making them sell it for 70,000 because they owe the bank 70,000. The other one is, pensioner bought a place for 180,000 and it's now worth 100,000, but they won't sell it for any less than 150,000 because they don't really want to have their fingers that badly burned. So they just sit on it. And like the one sat here, that's been empty for 6 years. They'll probably die before they sell it. That's realistically, that's probably what's going to happen. And then there's death duties on there as well. So you even lose out on that. So my personal view, if you've got burned, sell it, move on, or use it. You know, it's right on the coast. You could rent that out really easy. But a lot of these people, I don't want to rent it, it's like, it's just dead money. It really is. So like here, when we buy the apartment, I've written it off already. That's what I'm saying. Once I bought it, that's our home. That'll end up with the kids owning it when we hit the soil. But at the end of the day, we're not going to be selling it. But I just need it paid for because I pay rent on the apartment above this one. So it will pay for itself before I hit my old coffin. Or maybe I'll just maybe they'll just get frozen and kept in the freezer. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things. Property is always a risky one, and I know the TV shows always go, the flipper property. Da-da. The best properties, if you can get away with it, are shared accommodation in many places. Where I am in the UK when I'm working, nearly everything's a HMO to the point they're now trying to restrict more HMOs coming on, which is a multiple occupancy houses. And it's mainly all people from Eastern Europe. They're basically working in Northampton. So there's a lot of properties that, you get 4 or 5 times as many cars and stuff. At the same time, I think they're exempt for things like council tax. It's all a bit peculiar. But those are good cash earners because 1 to 2, 1.5 people will pay your entire mortgage. So if you've got 5 people in there, your quid's in. Market SG, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I hope you had a good one. So yeah, I mean, it's like people are asking me on where to buy, what's good to rent out. The thing is, if you're buying, try and buy direct, not for real estate agents. You'll save maybe 10% if you can find the right person that's selling. I mean, the one down there we missed out on while I was waiting for the mortgage to get set up with the bank. It went from I think they're advertising at 99, but I could buy it at 74. and that's because it was direct. With the real estate agent, I think it was on the market at 82. So be aware there is opportunities, because the first thing real estate agent does is stick 6K on the coast. Darren 2697, happy new year, mate. Haven't seen you for a long time. I've been extremely busy the last year. I'm managing 43 schools in the UK, so that's kept me busy, because I look after the infrastructure and the long-term developments of those properties. So, for example, the HVAC, the windows, doors, everything, responsible for that. So that's kept me busy. But the good thing is I'm now getting to a point where the programming's going ahead, where before it was a bit behind. So it should get easier and easier, which means I have more time for videos. Thomas, property in most states is selling like hotcakes in Australia. Where are you in Australia to lose 20%? Values are up everywhere. Oh, I thought it said mine is 20%. Yeah. Yeah, but isn't Australia heading towards a point of where it's getting too expensive for property? Because I know some people have moved from certain areas to other areas to reduce their costs. So yeah, because I know a few people have said Australia's got too expensive on the property front. Mallows 963, best to rent out your property till things go back to normal, in my opinion, only from what I've seen in Sydney, Australia. Yeah, well, yeah, Sydney's going to be prime real estate. Yeah, I mean, where we are in Spain, there's a shed load of properties. There's over 3 million spare properties in Spain because they still keep constructing. It's a bit of a false economy, because if they stop the construction, the values would automatically go up. I mean, if you locked in like along the coast, you just limit the costs on here, because then, like for example, at the back here we've got the lake. You can't build on the lake, but they build the other side of the lake. But if you actually blocked any new construction, the properties here that are sort of dormant would suddenly become valuable, because the land they're sitting on is worth more than the property it sits on them. You'd knock them down and stick up an apartment block. You'd actually be able to redevelop this entire seafront, and without actually having to inject any more money into the economy directly, in the sense of, instead of building these houses the other side of the lake where everyone goes, how far away from the beach? How? Don't develop there. Leave it empty and focus on the coast. Drive up the properties on the coast so that they knock them down and redevelop the whole area. Thomas, COVID property boom in Australia, government fiddling in the property market, lowest interest rate ever in Australia. So good. Oh, there you go. So yeah, if you've got a manipulated market, the problem you get with that is sooner or later it all comes to a head. It's never good in the long term, but often it's good for generating work, because obviously the construction market, Australia is probably like the UK, there's a lot of people in it. So if people are getting cheap loans and whatever, they invest in the properties. I mean, it's a bit like in the UK where they had the buyback schemes and stuff for the local authority housing, where basically you could get, if you've been in a council house for years, you could buy it off the council with, say, 60% reduction on the cost of the property. So you're only paying for 40%. So you only pay 40% for the property. So the property is already worth more than you're paying for it. And then you get a mortgage against the property, but obviously you're not, say, let's just keep it at 100,000. So you paid 40,000. You've got 60,000 equity in it. So the first thing you do, you get a mortgage. So you may have got a mortgage at 40,000, put 20,000 down. So you've got 20,000 mortgage. Instead of paying it off, you get another 60,000. So the first thing you do, put the conservatory on, extend the bedroom, convert the loft, buy a new car, all that lovely stuff, and riddle yourself with debt. I was involved with a house association under the Labour government that was then doing this buyback scheme, where basically we're approaching people that were going bust and taking the properties back into housing associations and away from, a lot of them were like ex-council. So they went from ex-council to housing association, because there's there's different rules between the two. The main one that is relevant: councils must house you. Housing associations don't. The eviction rights on housing association are a lot stricter compared to council. This is why there's been a shift from council houses to housing association. But on top of that, we were buying up entire new estates as well, housing estates that weren't selling. This is back during the housing crisis when it was just starting to peak. We were buying new developments, every single house at market value with taxpayers' money, and then turn them all into housing association. Housing associations were basically being told, you go and buy the houses and we will fund you for buying these houses. It was all, well, it should have led to a massive crash, but this is all to prevent the crash happening. I think this is partly why we're in such a state now with a lot of this finance stuff, is because it's been left for so long. The debt's just kept accumulating because it's not been getting paid off. It's not disappearing. It's getting worse. Thomas, COVID property boom in Australia, government fiddling the property. We already covered this. Malas 963, the Chinese definitely created the boom in property investment. They did the same in the UK. I mean, if you look at AXA Insurance, for example, it's the Chinese that own their buildings in the UK. I mean, their headquarters in Bristol is a 6,000 people office. That's owned by the Chinese. Now, when investment groups like AXA don't even own their own buildings because they're better off with the cash, because obviously they make money off us left, right, and centre. Then obviously the property is not as valuable as we're being told, because I mean, if you've got investment companies that are a bit risk adverse on it, then they obviously know something that the general population aren't aware of, which is it's likely to all crash. Now, the COVID situation is a bit peculiar in the UK. Job insecurity is another issue. Yeah, let me shut the blind a bit. Yeah, I mean, this is the funny thing. In London, there seems to be a reduction on the number of people going into offices. And I know the company I work for, they're very keen on you not going anywhere near the office. There's going to be a lot more push on home working. Now, Carillion, which many of you may be aware of, which was a bit of a Ponzi scheme, in my opinion. They were downsizing their offices for about 10 years. They had this thing where they were trying to reduce £20 million every single year. Now, I'm not saying all that money disappeared, but I wouldn't say Richard Housen's got an £11 million chalet in Switzerland. But the fact was they started getting rid of their buildings years ago. And it was quite funny. One of the guys I work with is an energy manager, because they were saying, you need to work from home now. And he's like, I ain't working from home. I don't spend all day with the wife. I come to work to get away from it. And they were trying to get some justification. Cause he was perfectly right, though, to be fair. I mean, like he said, why do I need to create an office space for you? You're not paying me. You don't pay my electric. You don't pay my internet. I come here. And I think this is one of the things that a lot of companies haven't even covered, is they've took advantage of people's goodwill to stay in work. But I think Tesco, Sainsbury's, the big supermarkets, for their office staff, they've kitted them out. If you say, I need a desk, I need a chair, I need, whatever you need, they have been dipping into their pockets to make it achievable for people to work from home. So some companies are good at it, and other people are just seen as an opportunity to get rid of their buildings and not obviously pick up the tab for rental space, electric, internet, or even water. Because let's be honest, it's when you're in the office, you've got tea making facilities, and in some contracts it's written in there you've got some facilities. So all that's been removed from you for the company free of charge. Mallows 963. Funny thing is, I'm involved in manufacturing and production has tripled. I can't work that one out. Depends on I'd have a look on how much of it's exported, because I know in the UK there's been a lot of companies that are like working one shift where they normally work three. They've got rid of all their agency staff. So you've got a skeleton bone operation going on there where they may actually be importing more goods to fill demand that they may manufacture normally themselves. The reason because of this whole don't know what we're doing tomorrow scenario that keeps happening with the government. Because it's a bit like me, I want to open a restaurant. So I tell my staff, we'll come in on Monday. And then on Sunday afternoon, Boris, being the glorious leader that he is, turns around and says they're locking down the entire area. And I've just promised all my staff that we're going to be open on Monday, and now we're not. So all those sort of scenarios will lead to companies going, well, we've still got to fill demand, but we can't manufacture. Where can we get them from? So that's probably an alternative in there. Darren 2697, do you still have your properties in the Philippines? Yes, we do. We still got several apartments there. Trying to think, there's a couple of people renting them at the minute. I still got to finish the top apartment on one block. But yeah, we still got our properties there. We're going to try and get back to the Philippines this year if everything settles down. Go maybe take a month off for vacation. Can't be back for a while. Yeah, Malos 963, air conditioning, 1 shift to 3 shifts per weekend overtime. There's a lot more people at home as well. That's the other thing. Air conditioning, when you're thinking, overnight, get up in the morning, it's gone faulty, but you normally just go into the office, you don't have to deal with it all day. You keep thinking, I need to change the aircon, like this one over here. It works, but it does want upgrading. You're thinking, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year, do it next month. But when you're sat working at home in a bit of a sweat, need it done this Friday. So yeah, there's a good chance demand sort of soared with that. Darren 2697, I think Jay from Cairns, Australia, was staying there. I think Jay has done well in Bitcoin. Yeah, I would say Jay's done very well on Bitcoin. I went into Bitcoin and crypto with Jay when we did all right. Before we went to Australia, we were trading in Bitcoin every day for a year, and we both did very well out of it. That's why I'm sort of saying, well, I've missed out on this opportunity, but you know what? I'll just wait for the next drop, then I'll get back in. Because one of the things with trading, because I like to trade, is it takes all my time, and I can't do that and do my other stuff. So it's either one or the other. I mean, if it drops down to where it was before, where when it hit to the $2,000, $3,000 mark, then just buy in and leave it, and just sit on it until it does what it's just done there. It just jumped up to 30,000. So at that point, cash it out. I know some people sitting there going, it'll go at 50,000. I'll go to, I always look at what's driving the demand. If it starts going to pure speculation, that's when the risk's in there. And I think we've hit that point now, because with the COVID situation, a lot of people do not trust the banks. They do not trust the governments. They do not trust. So they're looking at alternatives. But now it's starting to hit the TV going, oh, look at Bitcoin, look at Bitcoin. That's when you start thinking, how far is this going to go before it suddenly drops off? Because the biggest problem you have with trading is when people don't know what they're trading. So when they start getting a bit jittery, they can help crash the market, because they start panicking or start withdrawing, and it can nosedive because of that. They're not like, you guys, if you trade, it starts crashing and you just sit on it. I mean, I'll have to check my portfolio, because I've got a lot of ETH. I've still got a lot of ETH and about 16 other cryptos, altcoins in my portfolio. So I'll have to have a look at those. There's still a few $1,000s in there, but it's not the right time for me to even trade them back to Bitcoin. Malos 963, travel vaccine plus 6 months on that. Yeah. Darren 2697, I think it hit 45,000 Australian dollars today, I think. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's now got to that point where I'm a bit wary. Because put 20,000 in, and tomorrow it's worth 5. It's Yeah, Darren 269. I'm not personally into crypto. I do swing trading on the ASX. I've done well sticking with the fundamentals. That's what I'm saying. That I did swing trading on crypto and I did really well on it. And the problem is now it's got to the point where there's too much risk to make the predictions. I'm not going to delve in when the market's at this level. I'd rather wait for the drop, and then I'll transfer what's in there at the minute. Because like I said, I've got a load of alts and stuff in there I haven't even touched in ages. I don't know how much is in there. Let's see if we can find it. It's all sat in my ETH wallet. Yeah, so mine's still down, but alts normally get hit quite hard anyway. So yeah, one of the dividends, I've got to check one of these as well because I'm actually due some dividends out of one of them because it's part of an exchange, which I haven't claimed for ages. So there's probably a fair bit of cash out there that I haven't even looked at. Bitcoin investing is something that doesn't exist. Malos 1963. Yeah, that's the point, because it's not. It's to do with a tangible value. See, gold is a physical object. A house is a physical object. Supply and demand, although they're physically non-existent, the fact of I've got a cup here, I produce it, they buy it, that bit there is a transaction. There's a value in there. But the problem you got with Bitcoin is unless you're transferring from A to B, because it's too volatile to go from A to B. You know, if you're, it's not at the same level of our promissory notes, the monetary system, but it can move. You know, you can move from country to country with it. But like this could be one Bitcoin, although one Bitcoin's a bit excessive. But by the time it gets there, well, let's just say $1, and a Bitcoin's worth $1 at this time. But by the time it gets to there, it's $1, but it could be worth 25 cents. That's the the value doesn't keep stable, which is why it's just investing. It's too volatile. It's unstable at the minute. And it's likely to be for the long term. Darren 2697. Wow, but the Thai visas are soon to be more accommodating. Yeah, digital nomad visa. Yeah, I mean Thailand's not a place I've looked into too much, to be fair. Yeah, Pattaya, I think there were some issues. Was there some issues there on one of the beaches? I think there was a bit of an issue there. We're talking about Pattaya in the comments, by the way. I heard Pattaya closed down indefinite, Malas 963. I think a lot of places are a bit weary at the moment because of this whole COVID situation. But Thailand, from the people I know who have gone there, and Frank, even in this town that I live in here in Spain, he spent 6 months of the year in Thailand. He's got a house and that there, lives there, no issues, loves it there. He does 6 months there and 6 months here in Spain on the coast. He does quite well out of his pension. But I do know other people that have partners and live out in Thailand, and they do all right. I think the cost of living is cheaper than the UK, Spain, Philippines, maybe somebody can tell me more on that, but I do believe the cost of living's lower. Language is a bit more of an issue compared to the Philippines, in the sense of there's less people speaking English, but generally I think the quality of life's pretty good in there. I'm stuck between Thailand and the Philippines on which is best for me. Yeah, I mean, as I say, people who haven't been in the Philippines that before, I recommend just, if you can, take a month in each country and just actually experience it and try and get out of the holiday traps, because then you can actually get a feel for what it's like there as somebody who lives there, rather than somebody as a tourist. Because a lot of people go, go out in tourist mode. Same when people move out to here in Spain. They come out here and their vision of it's like when people buy a bar. I could say, but why do you buy a bar? It's because they like all their fond memories have been in the bar, and it's like, but when you own the bar and run the bar, you're there from 9 o'clock in the morning in Spain. I mean, in the UK, you're normally up about 6:30 in the morning for the drayman, till past midnight every day, 7 days a week. Do you want to be doing that in your retirement? Don't think you're going to be sat there sipping on a scotch or whatever while everyone else is running around. Most of these places don't make that sort of money. So unless you've got a 400-seat restaurant or something, you're not going to meet that sort of level of lifestyle that your thoughts are when you buy a 10-seater or 20-seater bar. Because quite simply, you're going to be stuck behind the bar most of your time, because a lot of time they don't even pay enough to pay for a basic staff. Spain is too far for an Aussie. Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit far, but I mean, with the sunshine and stuff, it's not going to be far different to what you've got already. Yeah, Darren 269, good point. Holiday trap, perfect. I'm still in transition from holiday mode to permanent zone. Yeah, I mean, I see it here quite a lot when because I do a Spanish channel as well. And I say to people, if you're coming over here to live, don't sit here waiting for the money to run out. Start focusing on getting a job, finding somewhere to live, all that sort of stuff. Come out, we want to come out and do a few trips, because like flying from the UK to Spain is normally quite cheap until Brexit. I'm going to keep having a jab at Brexit, simply not because I'm anti this or anti that. It's quite simply the government's still sorting itself out at the minute. But I know conversation yesterday, I've got to respond to somebody's message they sent me around the cost of COVID tests and the cost of flights coming into Spain that have shot up. But that's probably down to numbers, but I'll get back to that once I've had a bit of research on it myself, because COVID tests are excessive. I've got to admit, mine cost me about 100, I think it's £185. What a rip off. But it's so I could get back home for Christmas. So I'll just write that off as experience. Complete rip off, but hey ho. Yeah, Europe doesn't appeal to me. Yeah, I mean, the main thing we're here for is the kids, to be fair. Spanish system here, the education is pretty good for the kids. They're multilingual. The kids are doing well at school. But if I was single or just me and the missus, we'd probably be tour Europe, but probably still be back in RP, because I do like the Philippines. Malas 963, if you're looking at great beaches, can't beat the east coast of Australia. Down 2697, I retired at 39, gave up, couldn't handle it. Choose to work, crazy, I know. I plan retirement to take 2 years after the virus, I suppose. Yeah, it's, I mean, there's a few people I know that work digitally. For me, like I say, I mean, the property we want to buy here, I need to accumulate about 90,000 euros. So once that's sort of done and dusted, got the property, got that paid off, which will be quite quick in the sense of that's where my focus is. So I'll be trying to flip some money where I can. Once that's done and dusted, I'll be taking the foot off the pedal myself. Spain's got a lot to offer tourism-wise, in the sense of there's a lot of material here for YouTube and just experiencing life here. So that's where I'll probably move to at that point. Right now, though, I'm sort of focused on getting the house sorted, gives the kids some security, and at the same time, it's a property right on the beach. So even if we decide to move somewhere else, it's easy to rent it out to other people. So there's all that side of stuff that makes it worthwhile. So a quick message there. Anybody else got any questions? I just thought I'd do a quick update. Myself, I've done quite well on the old COVID situation in the sense of work's been constant. I know a lot of people have been working online, have found their work's increased significantly, and done quite well out of it in the sense of they've had no loss of earnings, etc. I think we're going to. I mean, the UK is talking about April now. It's really peculiar. I really have zero trust in Boris. He just seems to just say the first thing that comes into his mind is if he's just making it up. Maybe he just is making it up. But either way, I've got very little trust. Darren 2697. I've done well in properties and other investment. The issue is boredom of retirement. I'm not sure if people like me can. Hence, I'm sitting painting here. I mean, I painted this a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't pay me to paint. I earn quite well. I earn quite well work-wise. It's just that we originally rented this apartment and we took it on as one to manage for the owner. And to be fair, I like doing painting because then I can switch off from other stuff I'm doing. You know, for example, when I'm sitting working out, there's a lot of stuff I'm doing on BIM with AutoCAD and stuff. So trying to move away from calculation stuff and just switch off, redecking's ideal for me because I can sit and just paint and not think about stuff. So I agree. It is hard to just switch off. You can't do it. You'll always be finding something to do. Mallows 1963. So many Brits have called Bondi Beach their second home. There's a guy I used to work with years ago as a painter on the exhibition circuit, and that's where he used to go. You come back to the UK for a year, work for a year, then go back to Australia. That was his lifestyle. You know, that's what he didn't have a house, didn't have nothing. I mean, he basically just went and lived, you know, hand to mouth. You go back to Australia, work for a year. Do whatever he did out in Australia, then come back and work for a year, then went back. So he's enjoying life, that's for sure, but not an ideal situation, you know, pension-wise, because he's got so many, even from his state pension, he's got so many years missing. But when you're young, enjoy it. You know, you can always recoup it. I think you only need 34, 35 years in the system. So it doesn't really, you know, if you've got a working age of 70 for the UK, either think smart and find your way to make money, or what do you call it? You're going to be stuck working when you do get back for the missing years to get your state pension, to get about 4 or 5 years out of it before you drop dead. Yeah, anyway, moving on. What do I recommend working wise online? To be fair, there's probably more people in the on the channel that actually know about trading and whatever you do online. Myself, we do telemarketing, we do sometimes, but I'm mainly focused on enterprise businesses with business ideas. I mean, the call center industry is sort of getting the nails in the coffin on that industry more and more, but the market's still there. You could look at recruitment agencies for things like LinkedIn, because they have a platform in there where you can actually find people that are looking for jobs and just target executives, etc., and just try and work with a local agency. There's all that sort of stuff, because that market has been absolutely hammered. But the advantage you've got if you're working remotely is you've got half the cost or a third of the cost of somebody living in the UK. So there is opportunities for things like that. Myself, there's things like CAD drawings, converting drawings from paper to 3D models. I mean, it depends on your expertise. Myself, I'm moving into 3D graphics. I'm moving into converting buildings for infrastructure. There's a lot of stuff I'm doing on BIM. There's a lot of stuff I'm doing on AutoCAD, surveying side, but I have a construction and surveying background. So those things there is a market for, but you do need to have the contacts in the first place, because a lot of this is quite a niche market. But that's what I deal with. But sales, there's always salespeople wanting, people wanting salespeople. LinkedIn's a great place to find people to call for businesses, but I do recommend chasing better opportunities, because there's a lot of crap ones out there. But I kind of advise finding other people that work online, see what they're doing. A lot of them ain't too fussed about you pushing in on their market either, because a lot of it is hard working. So it's not okay. A lot of people can't stand being told colourful words all afternoon when you're trying to cold call. There's all sorts of stuff to do, but there's entire websites on that. There's entire niches in that. But I do recommend looking at 3D graphics. That market's great. The VR market, I think, is about to boom, so that's definitely worth having a look at the VR side. Peter Hopkins, I'm doing contracting for UK government IT for Brexit. Lots of work, but all inside IR35. Interesting to see if it holds up post Brexit, but hasn't been a problem with COVID. Yeah, I mean the whole IT side. Yeah, there you go. The SaaS as well. That is something I'm trying to push more in the UK, because I do find the UK is a bit behind on a lot of the IT in many of the businesses. So there is opportunities because my friend Carlos, for example, deals with a lot of digital stuff out of Israel. There's a lot of internet security. There's a lot of corporate security software. You have to hunt around. But there is a lot of long-term contracts out there if you can deliver the sales. And then if you can deliver the sales, try and get out of just getting on the what do you call it, hourly rate or whatever, and try and get something a bit more substantial. Because if you're delivering the high end sales, then why shouldn't you get a share of the pie? Gerald N. Hello, I haven't spoken to you since you were in Cebu. You were a Cebu expat years ago, then Philippines expat. Nice to see you. I want to retire in the Philippines when I retire in 7 years. About how much would a house cost to build? I will be very comfortable. The main thing is the land. The construction cost is based on what you're actually looking to build, because in the Philippines, they'll do things. You've got to know what you're doing. A lot of the construction there is based on concrete and rebars. You have to get the right steel rebars. They will try and get the smaller ones so that they can pocket the rest of the money. They'll try and cut the more sand, less cement scenario. So maybe worth getting your design and then just pushing it out to one of the building companies and seeing if they'll construct it for you, and just ask them what the mixes are, look at what the provisions are, and then basically just watch them to make sure they actually put it in it. If you think, well, that wouldn't, they wouldn't do that, construction firm. I think it was in Cebu, a hotel collapsed because there was too much sand and not enough cement in one of the buildings previously. In a new build, they will do it and get away with it. My best advice is just treat everybody as if they're stealing from you. If they don't, then that's the bonus. That way, they already know that you suspect them, and you can sort of take control of the situation rather than assuming they'll do something and not do something, and then you're disappointed later. Just assume they are going to do it, and just say, right, where's the cement? How many bags we've got? Okay, how many pallets of sand we got? Okay, the mix is this. Okay, let's check the mix, or get it by the mixer. The cement mixer, and just check the mix coming out the back of the mixer. But yeah, personally, I'll try and use the construction firm. We built our own properties. Don't get me wrong, but it took me, I think it was, I can't remember, it was 12 or 18 builders to get to. The rest were just shocking. I spent ages putting the jealousy blades, the glass blades, because the window sills are all twisted. There wasn't a straight angle on it. So I'm then having to chip it all out, square it all up, and then redo all the concrete. Yeah. Welcome to the Philippines, as they say. But hey, I get the same in Spain, so don't worry. It's not unique. I've got a mechanic coming to my car again on Tuesday because there's still got some issues. It seems to be getting less and less, but I've already spent about 2,000 euros on it, and that was from my garage originally. It's all, you know what's frustrating? It's all this stuff you don't want. You know, like when you buy something from a garage, you're like, okay, expecting very little problems. Then you get the headaches. And you're like, okay, so I paid a premium for absolutely nothing. I'm gonna have to spend money to get it fixed. And you're like, okay, just got to get through the day, get it sorted. Because there's no point selling it and getting another car. Because I'm probably going to get exactly the same again. So I might as well just fix this one. Next time I buy a car, which is, that sounds the dumbest thing, because in the UK I would never do this. You're better off buying a brand new car. In the UK, I would never do that because you lose so much money when it comes off the forecourt. But here, I find so many mechanics tinker with things. They cause more problems than they fix. And it takes ages to unravel what they've been doing. Frustrating. I sent 3 boys to college for construction in the Philippines, and they're working in construction now. I told them to learn everything they can so they can watch the workers when they retire. There you go. You've already thought about it. But yeah, so you've already got people that are already switched on to it. But yeah, don't just go in with the mindset that somebody's going to be stealing tools, stealing the steel, putting bad mix of the concrete and bagging the difference. Stealing electrical wires, whatever is not nailed down, and just try and, every day, just get a sheet and go, right, saws back, hammers back, still got 6 bags of concrete, still got 20 meters of cable, and you can get somebody else to sit and do that for you. But if it's all booked in and booked out, at least you know where it's all gone. Darren 2697, the free trade zones in the Philippines, for example, Subic Bay and Angel City for Freeport sounds like a good deal to build there. The property's in your own name. It is, but I'm not sure what the taxation is on that. Because you have to pay to be in those areas. So somebody else can fill that in, because I'm kept up to date on this stuff, because this stuff changes, especially when the governments change. Geraldine, I saw a video of workers in Latin America who cemented a house wall without cement or iron, and the wall was held together with the outside stucco. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That stuff does go on. Same as the using the right sand, because they may get the wrong sand as well. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Darren 2697. I'm not sure if the free trade zone regards the leasehold timeframes are worthwhile. Yeah, I mean, it all depends what you're doing in there. Darren 2697, 3D building bricks may be the way to go. Yeah, this is the funny thing. When you get the hollow blocks, sometimes you pick them up and they literally just crumble in your hands. But once they're set, and they fill them with concrete and whatever, they seem to be fine. But yeah, they do crumble in your hands. There is some really bad stuff out there. But yeah, I mean, we've had no construction issues on our house once they've been built, except when we've had earthquakes. But even with the earthquakes, we've only had some hairline cracks. So we haven't had anything major even on that. One of the other things to take into consideration is, hang on a sec, the door's going. Yeah, one of the other things to take into consideration as well is the drainage, because flooding's a big problem, and try not to be anywhere near too near any quarries. I don't know if you've seen the big landslide that happened in Cebu. I think it took an entire village away, but it was absolutely massive. And they've been warned for years to stop digging out the side of the thing, but obviously nobody listens. They just wait until the whole thing collapses, and then they're going, I don't know how that happened. It's just utter madness, some of this stuff. But also, one of the things I've learned over the years is don't assume everybody thinks the same way, and everyone uses a bit of common sense, because often they don't. And it's normally somebody else's lack of common sense that is a risk of killing you. That's part of life. Anyway, guys, it's Darren2697, which is cheaper, the Philippines or Spain to live, which is better quality of life, taking out the young man thinking. There's two things here. From a family point of view, Spain. There's several reasons. One, the schools I find here are better. Don't get me wrong, you can pay for better schools in the Philippines, but the state schools in the Philippines, in Spain, are very good. Kids become multilingual, access to the whole of Europe work-wise, and gives them a better opportunity to travel around, cash generating in the long term. Universities are pretty good in Spain as well. Food quality is good. Sunlight's good. Air quality is good. So that's the positives on Spain. As a couple or a single person, Geraldine, I'm at work now. Nice talking to you again. Take care and stay healthy. I hope we'll be able to talk to you again. Aloha from Hawaii. Aloha. Yeah, we'll speak again soon. Don't worry. I'll be doing more of these videos. Work's calming down. I've done about 3 years work in a year, which has been painful. The Philippines, it's good for couples, although you've got risk around the healthcare unless you go private. Generally, we keep cash in the bank. I'm not disclosing how much money, but we keep medical money. But besides that, my medical insurance in Spain, which is also private, actually covers me for 3 months in the Philippines anyway. So any trip out there, I'm already covered by private healthcare. Education's a bit hit and miss. I know people go on about international schools, but to be fair, the state school in Spain is probably on par there with a international school in the Philippines. So the schooling cost of properties, buying a property, they're probably about to be fair, the cost of properties are pretty similar. Electric's expensive in Spain, but it's also expensive in the Philippines. Food's cheaper in the Philippines, but the quality is not the same. But they are pretty close between the two, to be fair. The only thing, in Spain, if you're working locally, living on this coast here, the average wage is less than €1,000 a month. Now, in the Philippines, obviously, that's not €1,000 a month. A lot of people ain't earning anywhere near that. But as a Westerner living in either country, you're going to have that. So the main difference would be in the Philippines, we normally have a cleaner, somebody doing the laundry. It's all the household staff. But generally, food quality is not as good as Spain. Access to female company. So even that is a bit bizarre, because here in Spain, in the Philippines, they have the big bar girls. I'm talking about if you're that way inclined as a young individual. Here in Spain, they have girls that sit around on the roundabouts on plastic chairs. No idea for comparison on costs or anything like that, but I'm just saying that the opportunities in both. But if you're actually meeting someone to get married, I'd say Philippines is a lot easier. Or girlfriends, meeting girlfriends is probably much easier. Along the coast here, it's more difficult because the average age, unless you're over 60, the average age in this area, I think, is 65 or 68. So that's sort of the majority of the population are in their 60s. Because you find like the kids here live with their grandparents while their parents work in the city. whether it's Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, whatever. They're often working in the cities or elsewhere in Europe. But yeah, so I'd say cost of living wise, if you're here working online, I like Spain. The food's fantastic. Cost of living fairly cheap. Medical cover's good. In the Philippines, it's the same. I mean, the medical cover, our local hospital wasn't the best, but as long as you don't get in a car accident or somebody, you'll survive. You know, it doesn't really. It's not something too much to worry about unless something happens. Yeah, Thomas, I'm generally concerned about the quality of healthcare in the Philippines. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is where the big risk is. Because one of the things you'll get is they may actually try and run you like a taxi meter. You know, they'll keep you on ventilators or whatever because you can keep costing money at that point. I'm not saying they do it intentionally, but they will run up a debt quite quickly. So you just got to be very careful with that. It's Sess. Happy New Year. Hi, Sess. How you doing? Hey, Thomas. Hope you're well. Happy New Year. Sess here from Radar. The borders are back open in Saudi Arabia after 2 weeks closure due to the new strain of COVID. That's good. I mean, I've got to admit, I do enjoy the Middle East as well. I mean, my time in Oman was really good. I liked it. To be fair, I like being out in the desert, you know, literally where you're so far out that you can't even hear anything. There's no sounds. There's no wind. It's like literally, it's like being in a vacuum. It's a bit of a unique experience, but I did enjoy that. But also the quality of life was pretty good out there. There you go. Thomas, one time I got prescribed something I'd never seen before, heard of. I waited until I got back to Australia and went to the doctor. He said it was an antibiotic, only used as a last resort medication. Yes, it's the same as you can get morphine from the pharmacy. The thing I found is they keep giving you prescriptions back as well, and then you can come back again. So even I think we had a prescription that was a year out of date. I still kept using the same one. Don't bat an eyelid. So, you know, if you had an addiction of some sort or were doing something illegal with medication, there's certainly very few quality checks there to make sure that you're above board. So, yeah, medication, be very, very careful of. Google's a fantastic tool for some things. Anyway, guys, I've been on here an hour and a half, so I'm gonna head off. I'm gonna start doing some painting. Thanks. Yeah, the grey. I do like the grey as well. It modernised it because there was white before, and then before white it was yellow. But I think the grey actually brings it forward a little bit. What I want to try and do is get rid of this and put a like an IKEA TV cabinet there next. So it's sort of like just the sort of cuts off at the bottom there. It'll look quite nice then. Just brings it up to date because a lot of this whole area have got this type of furniture. It's all pine stuff from the 80s. It's like the chairs. Everywhere's got it. You know, a lot of this area, people bought holiday homes and spent nothing. I mean, literally nothing on the properties since from about 1980 to now. There's a lot of the properties all got the same furniture. Nothing's changed. I mean, this has got a more modern kitchen, but some of the other ones have got the original kitchens from the 80s. It's really peculiar. But they're holiday homes. So people bought them, come here every year on holiday, and never think, well, we're only come here a month a year, so not really fussed. Kettle works, don't change anything. Myself, it would bug me, but hey-ho. Tom, I was thinking of medication that was bad as a general prescription due to saving those last lone drugs for resistant infections. It was the kind of medication that was bad as a general prescription. Yeah, you can get prescribed much harder medication because they assume your immune system's bigger than a Filipino. Because I mean, it's a bit like there was a little Filipino guy, and this wasn't being derogatory. He was like a child to me. He was drunk one night and decided to try and have a fight with me, and I sort of just held him down like a naughty child and got some people take him away. But the point is, his body structure is probably a third of my size. Not because I'm overweight, but quite simply because he's ridiculous. He's like a bloody bird. You know, it might blow away in the wind. So the point is, when you're dealing with that, they might be looking and going, well, I normally prescribe it for this sort of guy, but you're much bigger, so let's give you the heavy duty stuff. And I think that's where some of this happens. So just be aware of that one. Darren2697, thanks for your time, my friend. It's good to see you again. You're an insightful man, that's for sure. Thank you. Appreciate the comment as well. Seth, good to hear from you again. Better new year ahead for all of us. I'm sure it will be. I think, to be fair, I think we'll be out the worst of it by April, as per Boris's instruction. The new strain stuff does bother me because we'll just keep getting new strains. That's normal. That's just part of viruses. But I am hoping that we're now through the worst of it, and hope everybody has a great year. And if you are in Spain and I'm here at the same time, please feel free to drop by and we'll go for a coffee. Catch you guys later and take care. Thomas, good stream and chat tonight. Stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. You too, guys. Take care.